Hi, welcome back to the grumpy old Grognard's Attic. I'm Kenny, and today I want to talk to you about Advanced Dungeons & Dragons. So most of you just clicked away. Look, those of you who've been watching me for a while, you know I'm all about AD&D. Those of you who just blundered into me because of the algorithm, I do apologize. But I'm an AD&D player. I have very little interest, if no interest in 5th edition. So if that's something that interests you, great. It's nice to have you here. If not, you could stick around. You might learn something, but you might not. So, hey, that's on you. So today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about Advanced Dungeons & Dragons. And I'm going to mention 5th edition a couple of times, and I'm not going to diss it. Okay? So here's the deal. I don't play raw. Okay? I am not a what do you guys call yourselves? The bro SR? Not one of those guys. Okay? You know who else wasn't one of those guys? Gary Gygax wasn't one of those guys. Okay? In fact, I've seen his notes from his version of 2nd edition, his changes that he wanted to make from 2nd edition, and it would make you bro SR guys squirm. It really would. Okay? So I have my own version of the game. Okay? My own version of the game. Now, for today, I'm going to talk about the tabletop role-playing game, not necessarily my online game, which I run differently because I use an online game engine, and the online game engine has rules programmed into it, and it's a little trickier trying to do things different ways. So today I'm going to talk to you about my personal home tabletop Advanced Dungeons & Dragons rules, okay? And how they're different from the old rules that we used to play by. Some of it is new, some of it is not, okay? Let's start with character generation, okay? I use 46, drop the lowest, assign them anywhere you want, okay? I understand that there's a lot of guys who think that that's heresy. You have to roll 3d6 and take them in the order you roll them. I find the campaign is more fun for everybody if people actually get to play the characters that they want. So I let people roll up the characters that they want. They have to stick to the roles, but they are slightly better than your average person, so I do give them a 46, drop lowest. Back in the original D&D game, that was not such a big deal, because back in the original D&D game, statistics weren't that important. Like, if you had an 18 strength, right, you got like a +1 to hit, +1 to damage. Maybe +1, +2, something like that. It was small, petite. If you had a high enough constitution, you might get 1 extra hit point per level. But the bonuses for having high statistics were really negligible, okay? If you want to open up your Holmes Blue Book, there's a little list of them, and they're not that impressive, okay? That changed with AD&D, right? With AD&D, statistics actually became a lot more important, and having high statistics became a lot more important to be able to compete as a character with not only the other players, but the world around you. So, yeah, I allow the 46 cheat. I do. 46, drop the lowest. Starting hit points. I had a 1/2 minimum rule, okay? So if you rolled your hit points and you rolled below 1/2 of your max, you got half. So if you were a fighter and you rolled a 3, you didn't start with 3 hit points. You started with 5, okay? If you were a magic user and you rolled a 1, you didn't start with 1 point. Oh, you started with 2. Okay. It was didn't make the game easier by any stretch of the imagination, but it kept people from having to go into the game knowing that they were going to die. So, I mean, I love the epic stories about the 1 hit point magic user who manages to make it to 2nd level. Those are truly epic tales. But they're also very unusual. And usually when you start the campaign with a 1 hit point magic user, he lasts an adventure or 2 and you have to roll up another character. And that's fine. You know, if that's what you want, I'll let you play that character. But I have a 1/2 hit point max rule. So again, if you roll less than half of your hit points, and this is only on first level, okay, then I let you have half hit points. Backstories. No. Okay? My house rule on backstories. No. Don't do it. I don't want to read it. You don't want to write it because your character's probably going to die anyway. So why are you going to put 12 pages of love into a backstory of a character that's just going to die? Don't do it. Don't do it. It's a waste of your time. It's a waste of my time. Besides which, I'm going to read it and I'm going to go, no. I'm going to go, but why? I'm going to say, because you have no hit. You have no experience points. You are a first level character with 0 experience points. This backstory that you've given me, this is 200 experience points right there. I'm not going to give you that. No, you may not do that. No backstories. Your backstory should be a few, like a paragraph. Who my parents are, how I got my training, and that's it. That should be your backstory. Your backstory will be the first 5 levels of the campaign. That's your backstory. But I came from... No, you didn't. You came from where you are, because this is... Nobody ever traveled more than 20 miles. Like 99% of the population never left their starting hex. Okay? So no, you are not from some city 100 miles away, because you would get experience coming from there to here. No, you are from here. This is where you are from. This is your starting location, and you are from here. That's where you're from. So no backstories. Don't waste your time. Don't waste my time. I hate fan fiction anyway, and I don't want to read it. Okay? No backstories. So, treasure. I run a low treasure campaign. The problem, of course, being that advanced D&D is not really designed to be a low treasure campaign. The experience points values of Advanced Dungeons & Dragons assume that you're going to accumulate treasure and that you're going to get experience points for that treasure. That's a problem. So what I have done, instead of... I don't award treasure experience, okay? Instead, and, you know, for the most part, my players approve because, like I say, I have a low treasure campaign. I'm not saying you're going to starve, but no, you're not going to. You're not going to get rich quickly. You're going to get rich, but you're not going to get rich quickly. So what I do is I have a pool of points. It's based on your level. Like each character throws a certain number of bonus points into the pool based on what level they are, right? And I take that total and I just divide it equally among the players at the end of the night, unless you do something extraordinary. If you do something extraordinary, I'll throw in another share. And I will give it to that player that did something extraordinary, okay? So it's basically experience point sharing, okay? So 75 experience points per player, per level. So if you have a 3rd level, that's 75. If you have a 2nd level or 2 second levels, that's another 100. So that's 175 divided by 3. And that's for your treasure. That's instead of treasure experience. So I use bonus experience instead. This is something I picked up from MERP, Middle Earth Role Playing, the old Roll Master system. Travel experience. Yes, I think it's a good idea. Every mile you walk on the road, and I have a minimum distance. You have to actually leave the hex you're in, okay? But every mile you walk on the road, you get an experience point. It's a tiny little reward. But yes, traveling is an experience. So I give very small amounts of experience for traveling, depending on how far you go. So in order to get from 1st level fighter to 2nd level fighter, you literally have to walk across the United States. But it would be possible that if you walked 2,000 miles, then yes, you could go up a level without having to fight anything or get any treasure or do anything. You just walk from one place to the other because you're going to have adventures as you go. And the journey is an experience. So you get experience points for that. Training costs. No, don't do training costs. I have a low treasure campaign. One of the reasons that training costs was added into Advanced Dungeons & Dragons is that the players accumulate so much treasure so quickly that they need an outlet for it. No, that's not necessary in my campaign because they don't get that much treasure, okay? Economy-destroying treasure hoards are fairly rare in my campaign. They do happen. You know, there are dragon hordes out there, but the odds of a player running into them on a given adventure are exceedingly small. Poison. Save or die. No. First of all, that's not actually how poison works. Okay? So, I never liked that rule. Never liked it. So I have my own poison rules. It's based on poison rolls. So, you do get you get bit by a poison creature. You get to make a saving throw. If you make the saving throw, then you're going to be okay. You're going to feel it, but you're going to be okay. You're going to be miserable, but you're going to be able to survive. You're going to be able to continue to function. If you fail, you're on your way to dying, okay? But you're not going to just drop dead instantly most of the time. I assign individual monsters ratings, poison ratings. The higher the rating, the less potent the poison is. So if you get bit by a black widow, like a giant black widow spider, the poison rating is going to be 1. And that means, yeah, you fail your saving throw, down you go. Okay? But if you're bitten by a standard issue giant spider, the poison rating is going to be 3. Okay? So, or sorry, 0. My bad. Black widow is a 0. Zoom over here. Black widow is a 0. So it doesn't matter how bad you fail your roll by. You're going to die instantly if you fail that roll. Brown spiders are 1. Okay, so what that means is if you fail your roll by 4, you got 4 rounds before you're actually going to die of your injuries. Okay. Now, the moment when you drop from your injuries does not necessarily mean you're going to die. Okay. You are going to drop to 0 hit points, and you're going to make another poison saving throw. And if you fail this one, you are going to die. Okay, your heart stops and you die. If you make it, you are now incapacitated as if you had gone to 0 hit points. The poison has taken you out, but it hasn't actually killed you. This is more accurate to the way poison actually works. Okay, so the amount you fail your first saving throw by dictates how much longer you can stay functioning. This gives you a chance to cast a spell, drink a potion, neutralize your poison, and continue to fight for a little while. Because when you get poisoned, you don't usually go straight down. It'll depend on the poison factor. And again, new D&Ders have a very hard time with the concept, but the higher the poison rating, the less potent it is. Okay? So that's poison. 5th edition. For the most part, I don't care for 5th edition. I ran a 5th edition campaign for 2 years, and the more I got to know the system, the more I really didn't like it. But, big but here, there were some things I liked about it. Okay, the first is advantage and disadvantage. Now, I haven't built it into my core rule system at all, and it's not an innovation of 5th edition. Okay, in fact, most people don't know this, advantage and disadvantage actually came from the original Advanced Dungeons & Dragons. I don't remember the details, but there was a monster, I think it was in the Fiend Folio. It was kind of a luck monster, and if it took a liking to you, it would give you advantages on your rolls. I don't remember what it was called. It was a long time ago, and I don't really use the Fiend Folio much. Okay, but I did notice that there is an advantage and disadvantage way back in Advanced Dungeons & Dragons is where I first saw that particular rule implemented. And I do use it. Okay, I do use it. I don't use it as a part of the core rules at all because I think it's too simplistic to cover the way 5th edition uses it, where it kind of covers anytime you have any kind of advantage or any kind of disadvantage. Oh, he's behind cover, so he gets it. He gets it. You have to attack him at disadvantage. Well, what if he's behind? What if he's concealed but not actually behind cover? Well, he's still You still have it to attack with a disadvantage. There should be a difference between somebody hiding behind a brick wall and somebody hiding behind a bush. But because of the advantage-disadvantage system, 5th edition doesn't allow for that, which I think is kind of stupid. So for the most part, I use pluses and minuses as bonuses and penalties on its simple D20 roll. But I have been known to throw advantage and disadvantage out there as an option. Okay? So I do use it. You know, it's a mechanic that I have adopted in my Advanced Dungeons & Dragons campaign. The other one is inspiration points. Now, I do not use this on my online game. Again, I'm talking about the tabletop role-playing game. I do use something akin to inspiration. Again, this is not an innovation from 5th edition. The first time I recall seeing something like the inspiration rule being used was way back in the early 80s, the Star Wars role-playing game. That had force points. Now, inspiration, you only can have 1 point at a time. I think that's probably the best way to do it, because you could have 7 force points. It was a game breaker. Now, once you spent them, like every time you spent the force point, kind of trickling down towards the dark side. So there were tricks. There was a problem with that in Star Wars too. You had to kind of be careful about how you used your force points. But that's the first time I remember seeing that kind of game mechanic, and I like it. It works, you know. And so for my tabletop game, I have kind of adopted something. I don't use it exactly the same way. You know, not everybody is all rah role play. I have a lot of narrative role players in my game, and that the fact that you're a narrative role player should not eliminate the possibility that you receive inspiration points. So I don't just award it for role play. I also award it for particularly intelligent play or clever play, right? This is Advanced Dungeons and Dragons we're talking about. So solving a particularly difficult puzzle deserves a reward, right? And that's one of the things that I use inspiration points for in my Advanced Dungeons and Dragons campaign. I'm very stingy with my inspiration points, but I do occasionally award them. And of course, the limit stands. You can only have 1. The last thing I've adopted, and again, on my tabletop game, not my Fantasy Grounds game, because I would have no idea how to implement this in Fantasy Grounds, but another thing I've implemented is spell slots. Okay? I never cared for the fantasy and magic. I like spell slots, and that is actually an innovation from 5th edition. I have spent many years trying to find an alternative to the fantasy and magic and Advanced Dungeons and Dragons that didn't break the game. And I've never been able to find anything, so I've always just stuck with the fantasy and magic. But spell slots have changed my mind about that. So I have actually incorporated spell slots into my tabletop Advanced Dungeons and Dragons campaign. Death. Okay? I don't like any of the death systems, so I have my own. 5th edition, I hold in abject contempt. If you play 5th edition and you want to defend the death system, go somewhere else, because it's stupid. Okay? The giant squashes you with a huge club, and you go drop down to negative 20 hit points. You're dead. Okay? You're jelly. You're dead. That's all there is to it. But in 5e, of course, you go to 0 and start making death saves. Doesn't matter. Giant dragon bites you in half. You go into 0. You go down to 0 hit points and you start making death saves. Stupid system. Just stupid system. So I have a mix. It's harder than the -10 system, but it's not impossible to survive an injury. So the way it works is you have a number of potential number of negative hit points equal to the number of hit points that you have. So down to negative 10. Negative 10 is the cap on that. So if you are a fighter with 5 hit points and you take a hit that knocks you down to negative 3, you now have a potential of 2 negative hit points left. Okay? So I do not use the bleed out rules as written because you don't always bleed out from an injury like that. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. So I base that on a system shock roll. At that point, you make a system shock roll. If it is a blunt weapon, then you get a +2 on your system shock roll. If it is a bladed weapon, or if it is teeth or claws, then your odds of bleeding out are just normal. There's no modifier. If you make your system shock roll, then you are not going to bleed out. You're just going to lay there on the ground till the end of the combat, and somebody can come along and help you. If you fail that system shock roll, you are going to begin to lose 1 hit point per round until you die. So if you're down to -3 and you have 5 hit points, you have 2 rounds for somebody to come and help you. If nobody comes and helps you in those 2 rounds, you're going to die. Don't waste your potions. Don't waste your spells. Somebody has to come and help you, provide a basic level of assistance, basically bandage your wound to try to stop the bleeding. If they do that, you get another system shock roll each round until you either die or you recover. Okay? So by recover, I mean stop losing hit points. Okay? So the death in my world is serious. I mean, it's a very serious risk. But I never cared for them. Again, there's a lot of people who are going to be like, oh, 0 hit points is dead, absolutely and completely. That doesn't make any sense to me. That just seems silly. I mean, you fight at perfect optimization, no penalties, no death spiral of any kind, right up until you hit 0 hit points, and then suddenly you drop dead instantly. No, come on, that's not how death works. Okay, even back in the days of yore, when people the doctors would put leeches on your wounds to try to keep you from bleeding out. Even back then, people survived debilitating injuries. So the idea that it's absolutely impossible to get knocked out in a fight and survive is stupid. Okay? So yes, it is possible, but not likely, especially at low level, to take an injury that doesn't kill you, but simply disables you. So that's my personal death system. It's much more harsh than the normal -10, but it's much more realistic and less harsh than the 0 equals dead. Other than that, I do play pretty much rules as written, but right now I've got the whole Bro SR crew just seething and telling me what a beta I am because I don't play the hard version. And, fine. You guys go have fun playing with each other. But no, I have adopted house rules. And back in the old days when we, you Bro SR guys were not around back then. All right? You're a bunch of teeny boppers, okay? You were not around back then, okay? We all did that. We all had our own house rules. In fact, in the original D&D days, the little pamphlets, there was no rules as written because the rules were so badly written that we had to do this. We had to kind of make up our own rules as we went. So all the campaigns were like that. It was hysterical. We all had basically the same overland map, but there were no overland rules. So we all had completely different campaign settings, even though they all used exactly the same map. So outdoor adventure, what was it called? Outdoor Survival. And Avalon Hill had a game called Outdoor Survival. And in the book, it said, get your hands on a copy of this game and then use the map as the overland map. A lot of us did. We got this map and we used that as our overland map. So we all had completely identical maps. But we had to populate it ourselves. There was no setting information. So we each had exactly the same map and completely different campaign settings. We all did a lot of house rules back then. Okay? That's just how you played the game. So don't come at me with your Bro SR nonsense about how there's an official right way. That's just as stupid as when the 5th edition, rules Nazis come at you going, oh no, you can't do that, it's wrong. Okay? No, I make it very clear to my players, this is my game, we're going to play by my house rules, and here's what they are. So, and those are mine. And yes, it makes the game easier. Because I don't know if you've ever played Advanced Dungeons & Dragons, and I'm sure Most of the people watching this video have played Dungeons and Dragons, so they know how hard it is. And yeah, I give my players a few little advantages here and there. I don't make it easy for them, but I don't want it to be too hard either. And, you know, I do my best to mitigate their risk. And playing a fighter with 1 hit point is nearly impossible. It's nearly impossible. So I don't make them start with 1 hit point. If they roll a 1 on their first hit point roll, they have 5 hit points. That's reasonable, in my opinion. If you don't think so, that's fine. You know, don't play at my table. No biggie. So that's it. Kenny's, or I should say Grumpy Old Grognard's tabletop homebrew rules. Oh, you know what else? You know what I forgot? Non-weapon proficiencies. For the most part, I prefer first edition, and I play first edition. But 2 rules that I adopted into first edition. One is THAC0. It's a good way to communicate to hits. And I know THAC0 has a terrible reputation amongst the new D&Ders because I guess elementary school mathematics is hard. But THAC0 is simply subtraction, okay? So if your THAC0 is 20 and you're attacking armor class 7, 20 minus 7, 13, you need a 13 or better to hit. The math is not really all that complicated. So, as a general rule, if you have trouble with THAC0, you're too fucking stupid to sit at my table anyway. So, I really don't have a problem with people who don't like THAC0. Just go play Dungeons and Dragons with somebody else. So THAC0 is one thing that I adopted from 2nd edition. I know a lot of 1st edition players. In fact, THAC0 started as a house rule with 1st edition players. I just was never in any of those circles. So for me, I was not introduced to THAC0 until 2nd edition, and I adopted the rule immediately because it really is a good rule. And the other one was non-weapon proficiencies. I liked them. You know, they originally came out in 1st edition with the Oriental Adventures source book, which I never really used because I didn't have any adventures set in an Oriental setting. So I didn't really pay all that much attention to Oriental Adventures. I bought it and I wound up gathering dust on a shelf someplace. I played in an Oriental Adventures campaign, but again, didn't really look through the books. I just drew up a character and played, right? I knew a little bit about, you know, the Japanese Civil Wars of that era, that period. So the whole concept of samurai and daimyo and, you know, all that was not completely over my head. I was able to role play in the setting, but I never really paid much attention to the books. And I was never as dedicated a player as I am a dungeon master. I'm much more dedicated to my DMing than my playing. But I did, when 2nd edition came along, I did adopt non-weapon proficiencies. And those are my Dungeons and Dragons, advanced Dungeons and Dragons house rules. So if you want to play at my table, and I'm not talking about my online game. Like I said, I use Fantasy Grounds. I really don't know how to modify rules in Fantasy Grounds. In fact, I don't even know for sure that you can modify rules in Fantasy Grounds. So I don't really mess with that. I kind of play rule as written in Fantasy Grounds. But if you come to my house and sit at my dining room table and you play with minis and maps and battle mats and little houses and things, then yeah, those are the rules you're going to be playing by. And I have never had a player who did not have fun. So yeah, I mess with the rules. I do not play rules as written. I'm not bro SR. I am, some people would say I'm not OSR. All right. that's cool. I'm okay with that. You adopted inspiration? You use spell slots? You're not OSR. Okay. That's fine, you know. I'll call me something else. I don't care. We have fun. We play our own rules and we have fun. That's what matters. Which is why I say, and I have always said, and I'm going to close this video by saying, it doesn't matter what game you love. Play the game you love. Don't be loyal to a logo. Don't be dogmatic about your personal tastes. Just indulge them and have fun. Okay, folks. Gotta go. See you soon.